We'll call the Town Plan and Zoning Commission meeting of November 8th to order. First order of business to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll have the secretary read the roll.
Chairman Ayuda.
Here.
Commissioner Carroll.
Here.
Commissioner Clappy. Commissioner Minor. Commissioner Payne.
Here.
Commissioner Sierra.
Here.
Commissioner Sobieski.
Here.
Commissioner Vitalica. Commissioner DeAngrave. Commissioner Fox.
Here.
And we'll have Commissioner Fox sit in for Commissioner Minor. Next out our business is approval of the agenda. I'll turn it over to the town planner. We have some changes and additions to the agenda.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I recommend adding under new business, item B, temporary sign at 3475 Berlin Turnpike, Stu Leonard's. This is the banner that they've put up every year for a number of years, and it'll be your first application under your new temporary sign process. And the CEO will remain to walk through the process. Someone from Stu Leonard's should be here tonight. We're expecting him tonight, so I recommend adding that to the agenda.
Yeah, he's here tonight.
Okay, good.
Okay, I see there's a lot of people from the public here. And the town planner has alerted me to why you're all here and what you want to speak about. We're going to ask you to please speak under public participation, which is at the beginning of the agenda. And I want you to have to sit through 3 hours of other business if you don't want to. We'll try to get you on and hear your concerns right up front. But before that, I'm going to ask that I see that the chairman of the Economic Development Commission is here, and she has a report. I'm going to have her come up at this time and give a real brief report on the sign regulation that she's working on, and then we'll get right into the public participation.
Hi, Maria Payne, 638 Church Street, Chairman of the Economic Development. You had turned over asked us to work on the community billboards around town. What we did find is a regulation. Park and Rec is in charge of them now. We found a regulation that Park and Rec has for them. There's only 2. There should have been 3. One was supposed to be at Clem Lemire, but it fell down a few years ago and no one ever replaced it. But it seems like they're being mostly used by Park and Rec, and Park and Rec gets first priority. And we did get a few businesses at our meeting who said, not businesses, I mean community organizations who said they tried to get it, were unable to because Park and Rec had something going on there and they got pushed aside. So we're kind of handing it back to you and saying, I don't know, does the council have to decide, maybe take this away from Park and Rec, or give Park and Rec their own signs and give the community signs? I don't know. Do you want to give us some guidance? Do you want to?
Well, I'll turn to any questions from the commissioners. Any comments about that?
Maybe Park and Rec should have their own sign and community sign be separate.
Yeah, I've heard from people that they went and community groups that have asked to use their sign, and they said no, we're using it. And then the date that they wanted, there was no one using it. So, I mean, they have sometimes different departments have their own ideas of how to run things, and but we have to do something because just driving here tonight, it's almost every street corner has signs from the Rotary to church. And we have a new temporary sign regulation that we're enforcing, and we're trying to come up with a vehicle for them to be able to put signs at some locations in town without putting them on every street corner. I think what we'll do, Mia, is that we'll talk to, later on in the agenda, I'll ask the liaisons to the council to come up and ask for and some input from them as to how we might be able to proceed, because it sounds like it's getting into a situation where it's going to have beyond what we can we can determine to do. But I could just tell you this, if we don't come up with a solution for giving these people a vehicle to be able to put their signage up in certain locations, we're going to start enforcing the regulations, temporary sign regulations. We're going to start pulling out these signs, and I hate to be pulling up the Rotary signs and the church signs and everybody else, but we have a temporary sign ordinance, and it's not being held to. So we'll get back to you and let you know. Stanley?
Yes, Commissioner Aida, can you please refresh my memory as to when those signs were put up? What was the criteria for them? I seem to remember that they were supposed to be used town-wide. And if Parks and Rec has taken it over, as you're alluding to, and Mrs. Payne is alluding to, then maybe what needs to be done is the town council or somebody needs to set a priority.
That's why I think that, that's why I think that when we discuss it, we'll have the liaison come up, and so we could get it back to the council.
All right. And if there was one, and this is the first, I don't remember the one at Clem Lemire Field, but apparently there was one there, then that needs to be reinstalled, because, otherwise we're kind of limiting them just to the two signs. Am I correct right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to need more than two or three locations. We're looking at least for 6 locations around town.
But I'm saying if we had 3 authorized locations at the present time, we only have 2 that are functional, that should be a priority to get that reinstalled immediately. Or I would think,
The Park and Rec is saying that they don't want to take on any more of these signs because they say that it's a expense to them of so much dollars a year to maintain them. I don't know what the maintenance on the signs are once you put it in. As far as maintaining around the signs, they have to cut the grass and maintain around it anyway, so. But that's what we're hearing.
Unless I'm missing something here, the new one that they just replaced on the small green up here looks like 4, maybe I'm wrong, but it looks like 4x4s in the ground.
Yeah, that's what it
with
is.
Maybe concrete around it and a piece of plywood or some type of material inside where you can put stuff on it. I don't see what the maintenance issue is. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, that's what was told to us. So I think we have to get some input from the council, and then we'll get back to economic development. My suggestion would be that if the council sees fit, that we turn it over to the Economic Development Commission to handle these signs. It's going to need some appropriation, some kind of funds to put the signs in. And okay, anything else?
There was just one, when you're making up, I guess, when we get back to the regulation, there was just a little part in here that said, if you were a competing or conflicting program or event with Park and Rec, you would not be permitted to put a sign on the board, which I thought was kind of, it should be open to whatever they want to put there. It's not, so maybe that should be taken out when you do your regulation. But I'll leave this with the regulation with the liaison, so when they come back and talk to you, they'll have it.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll try to
thank
get
you.
to that later on this evening. I see that they're here. Okay. We'll open it up to the public for public participation for items that are not on the agenda. You're limited to 2 minutes per person. Going to come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Rose Lyons, 46 Elton Drive. I'm very disturbed to hear what Chairman Payne had to say about the Parks and Rec having first priority. I know that she just gave the liaisons the backup paperwork on it, but in many, many years that I've been watching what's going on those signs, it never was like that. I don't know if it's a new rule or a regulation, but I think there should be some leeway to let the people in this town advertise various events. It always said community events. It didn't say parks and recreation. And these little fiefdoms have got to stop as far as I'm concerned. But it also needs to be cooperation, I think, between this commission and Parks and Rec and Economic Development. I know for many, many years, I went to Economic Development and asked for signs for Constitution Square. It took forever to get those done. And there's still one sign that shows a direction into the parking lot that you can't take a left-hand turn at. And nobody's ever changed that now in 5 years or 4 years since it's been up. So our boards and commissions and our departments, I believe as a resident, better start talking to one another. It shouldn't be up to the residents to come here and ask this commission, then ask that commission and get 3 different answers. It makes me a little bit angry, as you can tell. Thank you for your efforts with this, though. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak, come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Rocco. I live at 23 Deming Farm Drive, and I am the president of the Newington Ridge Condo Preserve Association. We are a small community of 10 out of 16 potential residents located on Deming Farm Drive. In the audience today are some of our residents. If you could just show your hands so they can see you. We are here to appeal to the TPZ board to use the performance bond that's being held from the builder Mass Construction LLC to take over the project and bring it to completion. It's our understanding that the bond money is held by the town in the event that the builder fails to complete its proposed project. We are also aware that the bond expired this past May. At a minimum, we ask that enough money be released to the association so we can repair the road to safety codes. We as a community have had enough in fear for our safety. We have consulted many contractors and experts to evaluate the safety of our road. These professionals include the MDC, General Paving, Frink's Landscaping, and KMR Construction. And they all agree that the road is in despicable condition and a serious safety concern. The original binder course, that is the exterior of the road, was not intended to last 9 years. The settling cracks and decomposition are going to continue unless corrected. The catch basins and manhole covers are significantly higher than the sinking road and pose plowing concerns. Water retention at the end of the cul-de-sac freezes in front of several homes and has become dangerous to our residents. We've already had 2 residents fall and incur serious injuries. After checking with the Department of Consumer Protection, we were informed that Mass Construction's contractor license was suspended in August of 2017, and that it is illegal for them to work on our project without a valid license. Mass Construction has not performed work on site since May of 2017, and we have made multiple attempts to reach out to Michael Massimino without a satisfactory response. We have hired an attorney. The lawyers would gladly take on a lawsuit for us. The fees would be high, and it would likely take years to resolve. The town has collected a cash bond of approximately $187,000 in case the builder fails to complete a project. Clearly, we are at that point. Mass Construction is not completing our community and is prohibited to do so with a suspended license. We now look to the TPZ to do what is right and use the money you have retained for the purpose it was intended. Since it appears you have approved the release of money from this bond to repair the adjacent road, Deming Street, we expect releasing the money for our road will not be an issue. We are counting on you to do the right thing.
Okay, Mr. Planner, can you just enlighten us about what we released so far on that project?
Right.
When we did it?
Right. A couple months ago, the town highway department did some work on the road, which Mr. Massimino said he would reimburse the town for. I think it was in the
Like
area of
$3 grand?
20, not a lot of money, but it was some amount. And so, so money was taken from the performance bond to reimburse the town for that work.
Okay, so there is a remaining performance bond of this amount of money?
In the ballpark of
180?
160, 170,000, yes.
Okay, what would be the, is there a procedure?
Right. Well, the procedure would be to literally use the developer's money, which we hold, to finish the project. Now, that's easy to say, but finish the project means becoming the contractor. It means going out to bid to hire the trades to finish the work. Maybe the town forces could do it. That would certainly be cheaper. Some of it they could do, probably all of it they could do, But it means sitting down and doing all of the minutia of designing, planning out a construction project to make sure we do it. The town's certainly in a position to do that. The developer is in default. We have every right to use the money if we want to. And as the residents have said, it's gotten to the point now where they feel the town should do it.
Okay, so we're talking about they still have the binder course on. It's been
Yes.
on there for 9 years, and they never put the top coat on.
Correct.
Okay, what other deficiencies are in the site plan? Pinning of the lots,
That's the lion's share is that top court. Mike, are you more
There are,
familiar with it?
there's some stuff that has been done that we're still holding bond money for, so if we
That's
end up.
good.
It's good because if there's an overage, there's something to cover. It's not a lot. The road needs to be paved. There are sidewalks that have been trenched for 2 years that are sitting. There's some grading issues. I don't know that all the pins and monuments have been installed. They need to do a map amendment with wetlands. We still need a report from the wetlands soil scientist for Conservation Commission approval under final conditions. There is some other certifications and things that need to be done, obviously, the as-bills and those final things. But the big piece, I think, would be the sidewalks, the grading, and the road. I've been out there and looked at this, and what's happening is the cul-de-sac is where the water collects, and then it freezes and it's cracking the driveways. So you have, and the catch basins, I think, have been since cleaned, but they're already failing, so they're full. So if you look at the catch basin, 4 inches from the grate is dirt. So it doesn't drain, and so that it fills up and then it freezes, and their driveways are just cracking into this pond that's created. We have reached out, I have called, I have sent letters, I have done everything that I can do to try to get in touch with Mike or Anthony, and they don't return our calls. And, they're seeing the same thing on their end. But that's basically the meat of what's going on.
is there a precedent of allowing, taking the bond money and giving it right to the association?
Right.
Would that be an option, or is that something that?
I would want to talk to the town attorney about that. That's kind of dicey. The cleanest thing would be for the town to finish it, but then we own it. Now we're.
Are these
we would then
private
be-
roads?
Yes, these are private roads.
It doesn't necessarily mean we own it. Means that we help the association out to perform some of the work. I think the next step would be that this body should hold a field inspection over there with the town engineer and the residents so that we can inspect this area and get to the bottom of this problem. Thank you.
Mr. Sobieski?
Quick question. How bad is the binder course? Are you talking it has to be replaced? So you're talking
No
basically,
better than we, but my understanding from the engineering department is that when one of the folks that they consulted for what needed to be done actually called our engineers and said, you can't use it.
failing?
Yeah, they couldn't just overlay. They would have to take it
no,
out.
you can't. You gotta rip the whole thing out. I don't even know if you got enough money to do that.
If I can interject.
please.
I have a quote from General Paving who came out and looked at the site, and the binder course is not repairable. And he's thinking, and it's too late already to do anything about it because of
Yeah,
the
batch
time.
plants are shutting down.
And he has informed us we're in for quite a winter. The first sewer manhole cover is going to be ripped right off. The first plow, we're going to talk to our plow guy to put a cone so we can try to avoid it. But he picked up, there wasn't enough material to begin with. It's crumbling. I said, well, can't you patch it? Because we were going to try to pay to get, the catch basins are so high, not only are they full, the water doesn't even hit them. Yeah. So it's a real compounding problem that's ongoing. The trenches from the sidewalk are like little rivers flowing into this, which in a heavy rain, if you go out and step on the road, the spider cracks in this binder course that's falling apart, you could give it a little jump and the water's coming up underneath. So he said you have to, exactly what you said, it has to be ripped up. He gave us a quote of $76,000. That would be, and there's
Just to replace the binder course or the entire road?
No, it was the entire road, and I have that itemized if anybody needs it for review. But if you're talking that there's 165 plus or whatever is left, and that quote is accurate, that's one quote. He's a pretty reputable company, I'm sure everybody's heard of general paving. I
Yeah.
don't know who the town uses, but if,
My second question is, apparently we have a drainage issue up there.
Yeah.
If the basins are getting full, so either one of two things, they're not big enough, the pipe is not big enough to take the water out. So, I mean, has that been looked at also?
we had MDC out and they have discussed.
MDC doesn't deal with road drainage.
Well, what MDC said, as well as the other contractors, and they may or may not deal with road drainage, but they deal with construction, and their expertise, opinion was valuable to us. They said that the catch basin, one of them is in the wrong spot. It's not in the lowest elevation of the road. And then they said because of the recession of the road, it's just, there's some that are 3 or 4 inches popped up.
Right, the binder course is supposed to be down, and then you put a 2-inch course or
Yeah,
2.5
that's what
inch
they told
final
us.
leveling course or finished course on top of it. I realize that. My question is, how bad is the drainage in here? Is this going to entail going in and straightening drainage out on top of it? That's what I'm asking.
Well, that's why we have to do a field inspection with the town engineer. And I would suspect that because the top course wasn't put on there, that's what's holding all the water up. And it's gone down into the base, and it's freezing thaws, has caused the spider cracks. And it's possible that the binder course wasn't put in at the proper thickness.
It wasn't.
And when they rip the binder course off, they're going to have to inspect the base and make sure the base is at the proper depth, make sure that there's no clay underneath there, that there's no sponging. So it's an in-depth thing that has to be inspected, I think, with the town and this commission, along with the residents there to try to solve the problem.
Right. My other thing is, if the basins are loaded, that means the cross drainage, or cross piping are loaded also. So this may require cleaning out. It may be more than what we have here. That's all I'm asking. Commissioner Payne is correct. We need to go out there and look at it. My concern here is I hope we have enough money here to do it. That's what I'm concerned with. Thank you.
Mr. Planner, any
Well,
comments?
Right, well, the fact that it's a private road adds an interesting dimension to it. The other option I was starting to say is, and I have talked to the town attorney to see whether this is legal, but I think it probably would be, since the developer seems to have pretty much walked away, is literally give them the money and let them finish it. That's an option, but I would definitely want to talk to the town attorney to make sure that that's not going to be a problem for us down the road if we do go that route. Another option, and I asked the homeowners to make one more pitch to the Massiminos to officially take over the project, buy it from them for $1, and now they're the developers, and now it's their money and it's their project to finish. That's another possibility, but if they get no response from the Massiminos, then that's not going to work either.
I don't think.
Sounds like to me that the state of Connecticut won't let them even,
Correct.
They defunct on their license and. That's
We've
from what she
researched this a little bit, and there are multiple lawsuits against this company currently, and there have been judgments against them, and they cannot pay. So, we're deciding with our attorney what to do, and why would we throw money at an attorney? Would love to have it, but even if we win judgment, there's nothing to win. They have no money. So I heard what you said, purchase this over for $1. We can't even get honesty, to be true. Yeah, we can't get honesty from them. So I don't see that becoming an option, and I'm speaking for them right now. I don't think they want that either. I know I don't. I don't want to. I just need the town to help us out here now.
Bobby?
Well, I agree with what's been said from our fellow commissioners. This field inspection, I think we absolutely need to do that. These people are in distress. We need to do something to help them. And we got to find the cleanest, quickest way to get this done. And I think we have to start with the inspection, with the town engineer. Let's all get out there and find the fastest, easiest resolution to this. I mean, I know if it was me in my area, I wouldn't be happy either, neither would anybody else. We need to come to a resolve. We need to do something here. And I think it's got to start, as Commissioner Payne said and Commissioner Sobieski, with the field inspection, with the town engineer.
Unfortunately, we're caught in a real bad time here because not because of the plants are shut down. So you're really looking at, you're going through a winter without any relief at all from, unless maybe you could, some of these catch basins that are sticking up high, they might be able to
Yeah, you could-
ramp up to
Yeah,
them
you could put a little bit of asphalt around them, and
so
then,
that they don't get pulled out by the plow. That might be a solution for temporary, so you don't start ripping out.
One of the suggestions from General Paving was, there's one where it's particularly bad, and they suggested dropping that.
Dropping it, yeah.
And they gave a quote of $3,500 to, I don't know how, but they're gonna drop it.
Yeah, they just go
We
right
talked about winterizing the manhole covers and beefing up what's possibly there.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I said, let's just winterize it again. He said, you can't because it's in such a dire condition. It won't hold, it's just gonna crumble. His opinion
you could
was,
still make an attempt to winterize and protect the manhole covers and sewer things. It's a matter of putting some tack coat down and put some asphalt in there. Will the plows hit it and will it fall apart? Probably, but it'll give some protection for the winter until we solve this problem in the spring. And I agree with you that one of those catch basins at the lowest spot, if it's holding all the water up there on a temporary basis, you could lower that catch basin so that the water drains in there just for the winter time, and then it gets raised back up when he does the final job.
would we be granted bond money to do this winterizing? I mean,
I think it's hard to tell until we go over there and field inspect it and talk to the town engineer and talk to the town attorney and come up with a plan of action and try to help you with a temporary solution for the winter and then a permanent solution for next year.
so what do I do? Do we just wait for you guys to come back to us?
We'll have to make a determination when we could get out there to do it. I'd like to do it sooner than later. I mean, as soon as we can, and then come back and have the town planner talk to the town attorney and get a report back from him as to what the legal ramifications of us giving you the money, or if we could do that, or we have to have the town take over the project. We have to have an understanding of where we're going with the project. Either you're doing it, or we're doing it, or someone's doing it. We got to find out who's doing it. But it bothers me that we're talking about it in November. I wish we had more time. We could have got a better solution, so that you didn't have to go through another winter with this problem.
We've
This is
communicated
ridiculous.
with the town for months, calls, letters. You suggested that we come tonight because of these situation is deteriorated so quickly. If I had known that this would have been more effective 4 or 5 months ago, I would have been sitting in front of you 4 or 5 months ago. But we didn't anticipate his license being suspended. We didn't anticipate him, nobody wanted this.
Yeah.
So here we are,
Well, we're going to get to the bottom of it.
Okay,
And
good.
the situation is going to be fixed one way or another. That we're going to use that bond money to fix the situation there. Hopefully, I'm just hoping that we have enough money to do the work. What bothers me is when you tell me that the catch basins are full to 4 inches from the top. That tells me that there's some structural problems underneath there where you're getting silt in there, and the silt's not going away. There's dirt getting in there from somewhere. Maybe pipes are broken. I don't know. Apparently, it hasn't drained at all.
That's what I'm
So
saying.
we got to look at. I want to see the site plan of where the drainage goes to, and is it going to a retention area? Is it going into this the town's system?
It's going into a detention basin, yeah.
Okay,
Well, it's supposed to be.
it's supposed to be.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Through you to the planner, how much time do we need to call a meeting? Because it is a public meeting that we call out there for
Right.
field inspection.
Well, I would have no problem calling this an emergency meeting. So I would have to post the agenda, but a day,
Could we-
2 days, you could
Could we
probably,
meet next Saturday, the 18th there, or?
You could.
Does that work for the commissioners?
that certainly works with FOI.
Works for me.
Bob? Michael?
Give me a second. Good.
Okay,
Well,
why don't we do that? And at least we start the ball rolling, and then we'll start with the town attorney. We'll have a conversation with him, find out
Talk
where.
to the engineer to see if he's
Talk to
available
the
on
engineer
Saturday.
and see if he's available. We'll need some site plans to find out what's going on with what was approved and if he put it into the approved drawings.
May I make a suggestion? Can you get us a set of plans, a reduced set of plans of how the drainage pipes are running? We want to see where those go.
Yeah, I want to know where they're going because
Right.
I'm not comfortable that he maybe even connected them.
They're not connected.
Huh?
Mine in my backyard is not
I
connected.
mean, it's
Well,
not,
And I know
it's not a
it
street,
behind yours
but
is broken.
Things, this plan set is particularly busy, so I'm thinking maybe what we can do is if we address, if we identify what you want to look at, we can come up with plans and maybe either highlight or something so everybody can see in the field. Because the plans have got contours, they have all this stuff on them, and it's like,
You don't have a
They're
simple
really
drainage,
busy.
you don't have a simple drainage plan?
these are these are the busiest set of drawings I think we have in our
yeah, they didn't
plan
break
set.
it out into different layers.
No, it's
all
all
like
on sheets, so.
Okay, so if you take the Mylars, get prints made of the Mylars,
Yep.
and then take a highlighter and highlight
Yep.
the drainage system.
We want to see drainage, we want to see the road information, you want to see basins,
Basins,
those are the
right?
biggies.
Yeah,
And what
You
we can
wanna
do is we'll call that out.
Cross-section of the pavement. See how thick that thing was supposed to be, the binder course.
well, the town specs.
Well,
Town
but
specs.
right, is it
For
3 inches?
private road. Town spec for private road, which is probably 3 inches of asphalt
Okay.
and 9 inches of base or something.
Right.
Or 12 inches of
Something like
base,
that.
probably.
Just to make sure we got that out there.
Yep.
there should be a detail on the plan of the
Yeah, we'll make sure we have
cross-section.
that section of the plans as well.
Do we gonna set a time now, or you want to wait until you talk to the town engineer?
How about if I do that? I talk to the engineer to
Yeah.
see when he's available, and then I'll send the chairman an email
Yeah.
with his
Yeah,
availability.
and we'll talk and we'll get it set up.
And you'll make sure that the association knows the time and everything, too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I hope I hope that you know that we'll do whatever we can to make sure that this gets resolved. I'm just so concerned about the money values here. I wish we had known about, this is the first I'm hearing about a problem with this project. We'll do what we gotta do to make it right.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so, gonna have to go through a winter might not be that great with the situation that you have out there. But we'll work as fast as we can, but you're still gotta realize, people have to realize out there that nothing can be done until the spring at this point because of the weather. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
anyone else wishing to speak?
My name's Elizabeth Morris, and I'm at 20 Denning Farm. And I just want to thank you for that, and even if a temporary fix can be put in for the most treacherous area, which is in front of my neighbor's driveway, which is pretty deep and freezes very much, comes toward my driveway, and there's disintegration. And then to the right, it's just all dirt because all the asphalt has been up. My neighbor's fallen and gotten seriously hurt. My husband's fallen. I haven't because of it yet, but I'm in a pretty dangerous situation right now. And if I have a hard time getting to my mailbox, and I could be toast if I fall and re-injure myself. And my injury's not from that, but if I did, just because of the way that things are now. So I just want to thank you for considering, even a temporary fix for the worst part.
We'll be able to determine that after we go for the field trip.
Thank you.
And how,
I have the catch basin or drainage basin right in back of my house. So there is drainage there for sure. It might not be everybody's, but there is drainage there. Thank you.
anyone else wishing to speak, come forward, sit at the table, and state your name and address, please.
I'll be brief.
Yeah.
I'm her husband.
Yes.
The situation has many layers, for the homeowner, for the association, and for the town. But I want to thank you, as my wife did, for your proactive response. But the big issue I just wanted to emphasize is the road. Because It's a community road.
Right.
There's cars from outside the community going through there, and it's dangerous. It's a public safety issue right now. We realize it's wintertime, but, you know, it's not hysteria. It's really a dangerous situation. It's getting worse.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak? If not, we hear you loud and clear, so we see the number of people here. It's not like it's just one resident that has a problem. It's the whole, looks like the whole community, so we'll get on it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Were you aware? I wasn't aware of it. Should we have known earlier.
Can I go too?
Sure, 5 months ago, he'd abandoned
Go
it.
to?
5 months ago, he was still returning phone calls, he was still talking.
Yeah,
to
it sounds
police.
like it was like in August, end of August, September, so we're really like,
He cleaned the basins in there. We got him to do that.
yeah, but they're still full again.
Does that drain into that other problem?
Other problem?
You know, where the culvert's blocked with the highway?
No, and then the culvert, just north of the hotel?
Right.
No, it doesn't drain that way, but that's been fixed, I'm told, that drainage issue.
Yeah, that's been fixed
Yeah, I
because the
know it's-
water's
it was
out.
dry, but
Yeah.
it's the last rain.
Been de-beavered. I think that's the technical state term.
Okay, I'll go back to public participation. Anyone else wishing to speak? Public,
Ask you to speak into the microphones.
me from there?
Others.
Okay. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak at this time? Okay, seeing none, we'll go right into the agenda. We'll go into the zoning enforcement officer's report.
Okay, so quickly, just before we get into the report, we talked last meeting about the sort of outreach letter. We finalized that list. It should be going out tomorrow or Friday. Just trying to make sure that we, number one, get everybody, and number two, that it's gonna go to the right person, not the owner that's in Texas or, you know, Louisiana or whatever. We want it to get to the business folks. So that list should be going out, and hopefully folks will be coming in and be more educated. You know, and that should serve to bring in more applications. Winter's a little bit of a slow period as far as stop signs anyway, but that's where we are with that. I don't know if anybody has any questions on the report. A little lighter this month than last.
Commissioners, any questions on the CEO's report? Any items you want to bring up to the zoning enforcement officer, Dominic?
I have just one. There's the, on the weekends, the flags and the banner going out on the turnpike.
I saw that.
Do you think we could get I believe it's state right away that those are on. Could we get the screws that are holding the flags pulled out of the ground so that he can't put the flags in? And I think a harsh letter needs to go out to this person because he's the one that's making the problem worse for everyone else. He continues to ignore the situation, and he puts it out on the weekends deliberately, along with a banner, and he's going to make the situation worse for all the other businesses if he doesn't get it corrected. Thank you.
Mike, you should call District 1, Kevin.
Yeah, I reached out to the DOT when this started 2-3 years ago, and they went there, and I asked them, I told them the exact same thing, and
Did you talk to Kevin, or did you talk to somebody else?
I talked to a couple of different people. I don't remember
My
their
strong
names.
suggestion is talk to him because he is the one that enforces that.
What's his last name?
Kevin Campbell.
And I thought at one time you said that the DOT gave the town permission to take anything out on the DOT property. I remember that.
Yeah, we have
So if the DOT is too busy, you could confirm the permission from the DOT and then have our highway department pull those two things out. And there's a metal frame up on the right-hand side of the driveway, which he hangs a banner up every time. Now, I'm not sure if that is in the right-of-way or not. That has to be inspected. And then we could have our own highway department take these things out. Hold them at the highway department and If the guy comes for him, he can pick him up, but he needs a stern letter, possibly from the town attorney, that this activity has to come to a stop.
Yeah, we have fined him, and we have fines recorded for him. I've talked with them, but, you know, we can certainly try to get those anchors, and they won't be able to put those signs up, and maybe that'll be a way to solve the problem. I can, depending on how quickly we hear back from DOT, I can get back to you next time I'm here with what we've arranged.
You might want to couple that with the fact of that state statute and show that to them. It clearly says nothing within the DOT right-of-way. I forgot the state statute number, but I mailed it to Frank, has it, I believe.
Yeah, I don't-
All right,
yeah.
that's what you rely on, because that statute clearly says nothing within the DOT right-of-way. No anchors, no fences, no nothing.
Okay, just one quick one. We could probably get it off at the 172 Indian Hill Road, the dog handling, the dog daycare. I see it's not on the agenda.
Right, we met with her earlier this week, and they will want to go forward with the public hearing at the December meeting. So she does want to go forward.
Okay. So we'll take that up under, is that on the agenda for
No,
that hearing?
no, not tonight, but the November 20th agenda will have it as an item to be scheduled for the December 13th or 14th
Thursday.
meeting.
Okay. All right. Well, it showed up on the report, so, and I didn't see it on the agenda. I thought maybe it went away, but,
No, we just met with her the other day. We decided, or found out what her intent was.
Okay.
She's decided to go forward.
anything else for the zoning enforcement officer? We're good. We'll go into the remarks by commissioners. Any remarks at this time, Stanley?
Yes, Commissioner Aida, several people, I guess, were watching Facebook, and somebody's posted there that about the attendance on all of these commissions. And I remember when I first got on, I believe Commissioner Planner Minor used to post a list or say quarterly how many people have missed meetings. Might be a good idea to do that and put an end to this thing. It's only a suggestion, but, you know, let's say like Stanley Sobieski missed 6 meetings or whatever, just quarterly to say you missed 6 meetings or what, you know, I'm just saying. Because that seems to be the major issue out there sometimes. Thank you.
Well, we do submit, my staff does submit annual reports to the manager, as do all boards and commissions, based on the attendance record taken by your secretary. So if anybody wants to know what the attendance record is, they can always ask for copies of reports filed in the past. That's public information.
Yeah.
The minutes say who was there at the previous meeting. So if anybody really wants to know, that information's out there. No need for it to be something really dramatic on social media. It's
Oh,
it's not a
let me tell
mystery.
you, social media is fantastic out
yeah.
there. It's not right, but it's out there.
Well, just was election, which you were all aware of, so there are going to be changes. There's open seats going to be available for the parties to fill, depending on the real outcome of the election. We don't really know for sure at this time. But whatever that outcome is, there's going to be some appointments that have to be made. So as far as this commission is concerned, I'm hoping that we get a full complement of commissioners. But we've been very fortunate that we have Mike attends to take up one of the seats. We always end up having a quorum. So we work with what we got, and there's some of us that attend all of the meetings. So. I don't know if that answered your question, but...
No, somebody raised it to me, and I'm just bringing it forward.
Well, it's
One other quick question, please.
Sure, go ahead.
Is everybody getting the CROG minutes that I'm sending?
Yes,
There's
very
some
good.
stuff on here that, happening in other towns that might be of interest to us or might not be. I just want to make sure everybody's getting them.
Yes, we are.
Thank you.
Okay, any other commissioner remarks? No? Okay, we'll go into public hearings. We'll have the vice chairman read the, you have the...
Oh, yes.
Vice chairman read the procedures which we follow for a public hearing.
Okay, procedures for the public hearing. The order of proceedings at a public hearing shall be as follows. A, convening by the chairman. B, the reading of the notice by the commission secretary or the commissioner designated by the chairman to act in his stead. C, identification and location of the property involved by the town planner. D, a statement of the issue to be considered by the chairman or the town planner. E, presentation by the applicant limited to 20 minutes unless a specific extension is granted by the chair. F, persons wishing to speak in favor of the application limited to 2 minutes per person. G, persons wishing to speak in opposition to the application limited to 3 minutes per person. H, rebuttal by the applicant limited to 5 minutes total. I, rebuttal by the opposition limited to 5 minutes total. During a public hearing, it shall be within the discretion of the chairman whether the time limitations shall be varied slightly. Provided the commission consents to any such variance, in no case shall an extension be for more than 20% of the allotment indicated above or 1 minute, whichever is greater.
Would you please read the first application for petition number 35?
Petition 35, opt-out of Public Act 155-17, temporary health care structures.
We'll have the town planner give us an overview of it, and then we'll get into public comments and then commissioner comments.
Okay. During the last legislative session, the Connecticut General Assembly passed a law that gives homeowners in Connecticut the right to bring in onto their property a freestanding dwelling unit for an impaired person, as the law refers to it. Typically elderly parents. I'm pretty sure that was the intent of the law. Some towns make it difficult to do this. Some towns make it easy, but yep. But the legislature decided that the way to solve this problem was to pass a law. This law was actually, well, never mind. Anyway, so it is now the law of the land. There are a lot of requirements, even though it's as of right, to be able to take advantage of this law, the homeowner would have to go through quite a few hoops to be allowed to do it. But one of the provisions of the bill was that if a town decided that it wasn't right for them, the town could opt out, and that's why you see the phrase opt out in some of the language. And it was my understanding that Newington wanted to consider opting out. So that's why we're having the hearing, because the opt-out language requires that if a town wants to consider opting out, the first step is for the local planning and zoning commission to have a public hearing on the concept. Reasons for opting out need to be discussed during the hearing, and then if the Planning and Zoning Commission decides that this is the right course, the commission would then make a recommendation to the town council, who would then make the final decision for the town to opt out or not. So that's the purpose of the meeting today. I do want to cover a couple of aspects of the law, which I mentioned in my memo, and I'll just read them quickly here. Under the Act, a temporary health care unit is allowed as of right, provided it complies with the following requirements. It must be accessory to the house. In other words, there has to be a house on the lot. It must be owned by either the caregiver or the impaired person, and it must be used as the impaired person's residence. It must be primarily assembled off-site, i.e. not stick-built. And I have no idea why the legislature put that in. Maybe they saw it was a poison pill to make it very difficult for the law to be utilized. I'm not really sure why. Another requirement is that the homeowner must apply for a zoning permit from TPZ, and TPZ can charge an application fee. The homeowner must notify abutting property owners. The unit must comply with all applicable building code, fire code, public health codes, all the usual necessary permits. The unit can be no bigger than 500 square feet. It must comply with all Newington's accessory structure requirements, such as it can be no higher than 15 feet. It must be located in the rear half of the lot, behind what I call the 50-yard line, and behind the house, so it has to be way back from the street, and it must be at least 5 feet from the property line. So I think with all of these requirements, I personally don't think a lot of people are going to take advantage of it, but there are problems with it. And in fact, a number of towns have opted to opt out, and some of the reasons that some of the towns have given for opting out was, for example, Plainville. They opted out because they're in the process of amending their accessory apartment regulations to make it, to streamline them for units for impaired persons, which I think maybe Newington should consider doing also. It seems reasonable to streamline that process for folks who really have a need for an accessory apartment for an infirm family member. Hamden opted out, or at least considered opting out, because they noted that there are a lot of deficiencies in the law, a lot of undefined terms. Hamden noted that HIPAA laws may prevent the town from even knowing when the impaired person vacates the unit. And one of the requirements is once the impaired person no longer lives there, the unit has to be removed. Well, how would we ever know that the person's not there anymore? And then I just stopped with Tolland. They opted out because they recently adopted accessory apartment regulations that they felt were sufficient for this. So those are some reasons that some towns have chosen to opt out, and I suspect the commission members have other reasons why they think this is not appropriate for Newington. There may be members of the audience who have reasons also that they can throw into the mix. And then once the hearing is over, the commission can decide what the next step would be.
Okay. Any commissioner comments at this time before I open it up to the public? Mr. Sobieski.
Mr. Planner, doesn't it also say it needs to have its own water source, power source, and sewer?
Well, I don't know if it says it needs to have its own source or water, but it must comply with public health codes.
Right.
I think towns are so different. I think the reason the law was written this way was because different towns, for physical reasons, have different ways of doing it. But it certainly must comply with health codes, with the health laws.
I thought I read somewhere where it had to have that. Thank you.
Perhaps.
Anyone else, any other commissioner remarks at this time? Okay, I'll open up to the public. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of us opting out, come forward, state your name and address for the record, and whatever any information you could give us as far as we have to put on the record if we decide to opt out, reasons why we're opting out. So whatever reasons the public might have, we'd want to incorporate those into our discussion and into the minutes.
Okay, I'm Gail Bedraco, 21 Isabel Terrace. I too have been on the internet researching, the impact and what some of the other towns are doing. I actually stopped at 15, 16 towns. There's a lot, including Avon, Bristol, Farmington, Darien. There's quite a few who have chosen to opt out. And I acknowledge the need that for families in town who want to accommodate members who need assistance from a compassion, from a care, from a financial reasons. Because, and one of the other driving reasons behind this legislation, too, is assisted living is expensive. And, families could save money, even if it costs maybe $50,000 or $60,000 to get one of these structures up. That's maybe half a year in some of these assisted living. So I believe that the legislation is well-intentioned, but it really is not well thought out at all. The core is solid, but there's a lot of room for abuse, a lot of potential for litigation, and there's the privacy concerns, as you mentioned, about HIPAA, whatever. Some of the things, it's difficult to enforce, and I think just as difficult to apply. For example, the structures. It definitely has to be temporary and has to be transportable, but there's no criteria, basically, other than the size. So it could be a prefab, assembled off-site. It has to be primarily assembled off-site. Or the way it's written, it could be an RV on cinder blocks. That's how ambiguous the language is. So, and there is a stipulation that abutting property owners have to be notified, but the neighbors have no recourse. They have to be notified, but there's no appeal process for them. They're just told it's going to occur, and that is that. So the legislation gives no opportunity for TPZ or neighbors to object about the look or the character, the overall character, and how it would change the neighborhood. There's no age restriction, And I do believe that this was, intentionally put in there. Because an impaired person, it's not just elderly. An impaired person could be a young adult. So you can have this temporary structure. If you have somebody, a family member going in there when they're 20 years old, this temporary structure can be there for 30, 40, 50 years. So there goes the temporary. The requirement for being a caregiver is not necessarily a blood relative or a legal guardian. It just says a care agent. So again, the way the legislation is written, it could be rented out. A structure can be put on somebody's property, it could be rented out, and the person can be a care agent who's living in the primary housing and rent it out. And that's how ambiguous and ill thought out this legislation is. And that's why it's very easy for abuse. And I know we like to think that people who need things like this will not abuse it, but believe me, going door to door, I saw an awful lot of abuse of our blight and some of the other, and you walk into some people's backyards. If there's a will, there's a way. And this to me can be subject to a lot of abuse. For example, the legislation defines an individual who's eligible for this type of structure is someone who requires assistance as certified in writing by a physician with 2 or more activities of daily living, 2 or more. And the activities of daily living include bathing, shopping, meal preparation, dressing, housekeeping, laundry, etc. So if somebody was, wanted to, they can get a doctor's note saying that, my mom or dad or my son or whatever needs assistance shopping and with laundry. That would be enough. And you could put a temporary structure up in your backyard. That meets the criteria. The certification requires a doctor note, and presumably it's filed with the ZEO, and it has to be recertified every year. So that's an additional responsibility for somebody, I'm assuming in your area. So that brings up things. What if abuse is suspected, but you're not able to verify? Do we really want to get into the business of going in for annual recertification? And if somebody really, we don't feel that they should be, or they're abusing it, you want to get into evicting people? This opens up an awful lot big can of worms. It's going to add a burden to somebody here in the town to check and verify that the tenant is still valid and to remove them if they are not valid, and also to ensure that the structure is removed on a timely basis, that there's still somebody even living in there. An additional requirement is a caregiver is supposed to be unpaid. How are we going to verify that? That isn't addressed at all in the legislation. Again, it goes along with the people. People could be renting the structure out, getting paid under the table. How do we know? Are these units taxable? It doesn't address that in the legislation. What about wetlands? If they're set so far back in the from the backyard, what's the impact on wetlands? Is that applicable anymore, or does that have to be ignored? Newington has a lot of our lots are pretty small, and we have a lot of dense neighborhoods. This, to me, is going to lead to incompatibility with residential neighborhoods. And again, like I said, since there's no structural requirements other than size, you can get an awful lot of, quite frankly, incompatible looking structures in neighborhoods. The intent is well-meaning. I really agree, but it's so poorly written, and it seems whoever wrote it is clueless as to how a town has to implement it and monitor it, the requirements. So a lot of communities are choosing to opt out of this because it's basically like a one-size-fits-all type of legislation, and they're choosing to develop their own on a local level to deal with this topic, which is a valid topic. How do you care for aging, people who want to age in place or aging relatives? But personally, I think it's better if we opt out and we concentrate on reviewing the type of legislation we have, such as accessory apartments, so we can modify and address the issues that this legislation is trying to get at, which are important issues, but doing it at a more local level so we can kind of craft the type of legislation we want. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wishing to speak at this time? Come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Rose Lyons, 46 Elton Drive. I would just like to say thank you to Gail for all the reasons that she set forth. I think it's plenty enough reason to opt out. I myself live on a small lot, and I know just when they have parties in the backyards and things like that, it's a disruption to the neighborhood. And I just think that if you just let little pods or whatever, little places go up, you're not going to have much control. We can't even take care of the flags on the Berlin Turnpike. What are we going to do? Hire somebody full-time to do that? So, once again, for all the reasons that Gail stated, I would suggest, or I would prefer that we opt out. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wishing to speak at this time? People that were in favor of opting out, anyone wishing not to opt out of the, or in opposition to our request to opt out? Okay, seeing none, I'll open it back up to the commissioners. If there's any other reasons that you'd like to put on the record at this time, we will have another discussion about this. But, Mr. Camillo.
I think if we go back and look at our accessory apartments and at another time, but right now opt out of this.
Okay. We do have provisions in our regulations under the accessory apartment regulation that takes care of a lot of the concerns of helping people be able to have take care of elderly in town. It's not like we have nothing, and we could take a look at it and see if we could streamline it a little bit. But I've seen that people come in for in-law apartments or whatever, accessory apartments, and they were not really restricted to the point where they couldn't do it. We have plenty in the town of Newington. They come in every once in a while. I don't know what the real need, what the need is. I don't know how this got into the legislature to become law. Maybe one of the legislators had a need for it in his town, or had someone request that they put it in. I don't know. Is there any towns that are allowing it, Mr. Planner?
Well, I haven't heard of any towns that have decided not to opt out, but I'm sure there are some. I can look for them if you'd like, and I could ask, if you want, I could ask them why they've decided not to opt out,
Right.
if you want. But
At this point, we're going to move it, we'd like to move it forward as fast as we can. Gail, you have anything else you want to add? You want to come back up, please?
When I was doing the research, I did run into some towns who decided not to opt out, and their basic reason is because they think that it's so cost prohibitive that it's not, that people won't do it. So, they're just going to take a wait and see at it. But that basically was the and so they're choosing not to. My opinion is all it takes is one or two people, and they're going to abuse it. But the basic reason for people not opting out is they just felt that it's just cost prohibitive.
Wasn't there a requirement for a bond to be posted?
That requirement for the bond is not, that's something that we would have to institute as part of our regulations, not part of the, they mention it in the legislation, but they don't say that it's mandatory. So, to put a bond on it. I don't think we want to get to that point. Mr. Planner, what is the procedure now to get it to the council, and what, is there any restrictions on time where the council has to act or we have to act? Or?
no, there are no restrictions on time. It's just that the longer the town waits to opt out, the greater the opportunity that someone might come in tomorrow with an application to do it, and it would have to be approved. I do have a draft motion to approve tonight if you want to close the hearing and move it to old business.
I'd like to have the opportunity for the commissioners to comment and any additional remarks before we close the hearing?
Yes, on page 2 of 3, 4-1, only one temporary health structure shall be installed in a lot zoned for single-family detached home. Municipalities may require the structures be accessible to emergency vehicles and connected to a private water or septic systems, or water and sewer and electric of the serving primary residence. That's where I saw that. So it'd be my concern here, if somebody puts this in, or this was allowed to be put in, you're going to put a sewer lateral, water laterals out to this facility. All right.
Back to the street.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. So I definitely would like to opt out of this, my opinion. Thank you.
Commissioner Payne, anything you want to add?
No,
I mean,
I agree with
Gail pretty much covered a lot of the reasons that I was going to state for opting out. She did a lot of research on it. I've talked to her about this particular item, and she came up with a lot of good reasons to.
I have no problem. I agree with everybody's statements. I'm not sure if the planner has everything ready to be voted on tonight with all the reasonings and everything, and I want to make sure that this is correct. So I don't know. Maybe we could close the meeting tonight and act on it next meeting, but I don't know what the town planner has.
Right. What I did was I prepared a draft motion to approve with 3 reasons, the 3 that I provided, but then I left space for more on the draft motion for us to fill in tonight the additional reasons if the commission wanted to. That was the plan that I had. But you could certainly wait till next week. It's just said, again, every week you wait, there's the chance of somebody building one.
Whatever the commission wants to do is fine with me.
At this point, if someone came in, we've never even discussed, we never even discussed the bonding issue. So what are you saying? We wouldn't be able to have it bonded?
Correct.
Because we haven't done anything about the bonding yet?
Correct.
And the only way you could do the bonding thing is if we approve them to be able to do it.
Is to adopt a policy
To
of
adopt
requiring
the
a bond,
policy.
right?
So I'd like to do it sooner than later, as long as we get enough information on the motion to send to the council that they feel comfortable that we've done our due diligence to come up with reasons why we want to opt out.
Right.
So if some of the reasons that Gail has brought forward, you've made notes of those. We could add those to the motion. I don't think we have to have 50 reasons, but I think 4 or 5 reasons or 6 reasons that are substantial would suffice. And if the council needed any other information on it, Gail is a member of the town council, and she could give input because she has done the research on this.
CROG have to be notified about this?
I contacted them just on the off chance, and they thanked me, but they said no, they did not need to be notified.
Yeah, I'd like to get it going, and if it's okay with the commission, put it on and close the hearing and put it on for action tonight, and then get it sent to the council so that they could get moving on it.
Make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
Old business.
Motion made and second. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll put it on the agenda under, old business? Old business B. Okay. Okay, that ends that public hearing. We have another one, public hearing 3617. You want to read that, Dominic?
Petition 36-17, special permit section 6.2.4, freestanding sign on Costello Road, Stone Rock LLC owner, Lawrence Sign Works LLC, applicant Michelle Lawrence, 55 Willow Brook Drive, Berlin, Connecticut, contact.
Is the applicant here? I am. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and make your presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, Michelle Lawrence, Lawrence Sign Works. I'm located at 55 Willowbrook Drive, and that's in Berlin. I'm here tonight to ask for a freestanding sign approximately 5 feet by 8 feet, single-sided, non-illuminated, with a decorative address, topper, and skirt. The total square footage on the sign would be 40 square feet. I've gone over the footage allowed for signage on the property. They're allowed a maximum of 480 square feet. The existing pylon sign has 110 square feet each side. The tenant wall signs total 112 square feet, and an entrance sign, which we haven't put up yet, is 38 square feet. So they have a total of 110 square feet available. This would be 40. They are set back from the Berlin Turnpike. They have a corner lot. They have two means of egress, the Berlin Turnpike and Costello Road. So right now they're looking to add a sign to the Costello Road entrance, mainly for service vehicles. But just in case somebody, needs to get in and out that way, it'd be nice to have a sign over in that road. It would be not illuminated right now. They might add power out there in the future. I don't know if that's something that you guys need to consider at this time, or if that's just a building permit later on.
Yeah. It's backlit, which we allow.
That is pretty much it.
Okay. We'll open it up to the public for public comment, and then we'll have commissioners' comments. So if you want to sit down, we'll have the public come up. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Anyone in opposition to this application? Seeing none, I'll open it up for commissioner remarks. Commissioner Payne?
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, question for the staff. The sign location is within 2 feet probably of the property line, and it is a structure. So isn't there setbacks of 5 or 10 feet for structures or something?
No, only for buildings or accessory buildings, not for structures.
No structures?
Well, if a structure's a building, then
Well, this
it
is a
applies.
structure by your definition.
Right,
This is
but-
a structure.
Yes, but structures do not have to have a setback. Buildings have to have a setback. Accessory buildings have to have a setback, but structures that are not buildings do not have to have a setback. With some exceptions, like a parking lot, a driveway. Those are structures, and those have to be 5 feet from the property line. But that's the only non-building structure that I'm aware of that we require a setback on.
All the years I've served on TPZ, I've never seen a sign come through that was this close to the property line.
Well, and because it's a special permit, you have the prerogative, you have the ability to make changes if you feel it's appropriate to protect the public health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood, if you think 2 feet is too close, since this is a special permit.
It's, any of the commissioners gone out there and look at the property and look at the entrance? This is an entrance that's on Costello Road. It's up probably a couple hundred feet from the, maybe more, from the Berlin Turnpike. It's it's actually a small driveway to the back of this building. The road, the driveway itself starts off and it narrows down, and you end up into the back of this building where they have the granite operation, where they have storage outside of granite slabs, and they have forklifts going back and forth, and it's really not what I would consider a safe entrance for everyday customers to be using, because it drops them right into the back of an operation that could be hazardous to them. I think it's the size of the driveway and the roadway and the way it narrows down and the way it curves around the building is, in my opinion, not safe for public access. Now, if they want to use this as a delivery entrance, I don't see where they would need a sign of this magnitude at this location, and then bring up the fact that it's so close to the property line, that could be a problem. I mean, the size of the sign, it's, you could see, why don't you, if we could show them the location, I wish if you go out there, you can see what I'm talking about. I've gone a couple of times and said, well, maybe I missed something, and it's, I don't think I missed too much. The entrance to the back of that property is dangerous at best. Why don't you show them
Would be in this vicinity.
Okay, and you see how it's going into the back of the building, how it narrows down? And you end up dumping the customer parking at the back end of the building, which is where this granite operation is and where they have all the storage of the granite outside. And when I was there was forklifts going back and forth across that roadway to pick up and move granite around, and you're at the back end of someone's manufacturing operation. Any comments from the commissioners at this time?
I just have one question.
Sure.
Is that a delivery entrance, or is that also used for customers?
Well, with the sign that they're proposing, it looks like they're trying to encourage people to use it as an entrance. If you're going to use it for deliveries, you don't need a sign of that magnitude. You need a sign that says deliveries.
Well,
You want to let her address that?
Yeah, you want to address that?
I don't know if they're necessarily going to just use it for deliveries and/or pedestrian or customer traffic. But it is one of their entrances. They do have a corner lot. It is a means of egress. If a service vehicle couldn't find it and is driving up and down that road, that's not really nice. Or emergency vehicles, it would be set back enough so that if you were, a car leaving the property, you would be able to clearly see, your line of sight would not be compromised by the sign.
You say it's a corner lot.
Not a corner lot, it's a
I
rear
don't-
lot.
It's a rear lot with a building in front of it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on that little lot. But that
Right.
driveway itself, if you've driven down it, you know that it starts off with pavement of probably 10 feet, and then it gets narrower that way as you get closer to the bottleneck at the bottom. And then you're turning left to go around the building to, say you were going to the front building. You're driving through an operation. You're asking people to drive through what is a manufacturing operation, because they're moving these granite slabs all over the place back there. And they've used basically all their parking for storage of the granite slabs. That operation is staying there, I assume?
The granite place, yes.
Okay, where is, just to enlighten us, what else is going into those buildings? There's a woodworking operation?
There's a woodworking facility. I know I know he has like 3 or 4 tenants that are in the works, but I don't know what exactly they're gonna do.
Where would the woodworking operation be? Which building?
I don't know which spot he's taking over in that building.
Because it looks like the granite operation took over most of the area which would lend itself to manufacturing or that type of a business. I don't see what other areas of the building would accommodate a woodworking operation, but that's not have anything to do with the sign.
Well, as a coincidence, the owner, Mr. Zavarelli, is going to be on your agenda at your next meeting to talk to you about a different matter regarding the site, and he will be here to make that presentation. You could keep the hearing open and let him answer those questions.
Okay. I would suggest to the commissioners, if you're to take a ride there up Costello Road, take a left-hand turn into that, drive into that entrance, and then around that building, and get a feel for what this operation is. It's a couple of buildings in the rear lot, and you'll understand what I'm talking about. And maybe I'm over-exaggerating. You might think that it's okay, but I'd like to have you come back and be able to confirm what's out there. So at this point, Dominic, what do you?
Well, I think we'll leave this open until next meeting.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so he's coming in at that meeting. We'll ask him the questions about the use of the building, and then we'll make hopefully the commissioners will have gone out there and take a look at it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. That ends the public hearing portion of the agenda. We'll go into approval of minutes of October 25th, 2017.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion made and second. Any additions, corrections? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Going to the next application, which is new business site plan approval of Brockett Street. You want to read
Yep.
that, Dominic?
Petition.
3017?
Petition 30-17, site plan approval at 262 Brockett Street, 2391 Berlin Turnpike LLC, and owner John Formato, owner applicant John Formato, 17 Farmington Avenue, Plainville, Connecticut.
Okay, the applicant's here.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, staff. For the record, my name is Alan Bongiovanni, representing John Formato in this application that's been ongoing for a couple months now. We were not present at your last meeting, but the meeting prior to that, about a month ago, we had a dialogue. We had presented a modified plan for your consideration, and we got some strong feedback from the commission that what we were proposing was not exactly satisfactory to the commission. The commission spoke very strongly about removing some of the pavement or the pavement that's in front of 2391 Berlin Turnpike, the old house that's there, and return that to green space, as it is the regulation of the town that no paving be in the first 35 feet of the property along the Berlin Turnpike. So, Craig, if you could put the drawing in, and everyone should have copies, reduced copies in front of them. We went back to the drawing table. We took your comments to heart. We worked very hard with the applicant to come up with a solution that serves his needs and serves the goals of the commission, and I think we've come to that. If you notice on the plan that we have there, the building is in the same configuration as we presented the last time with the proposed addition, but all the frontage on the Berlin Turnpike now becomes green lawn area. What we're able to do is just immediately to the west of the building at 2391 is reconfigure the parking there. Our last proposal was 65 parking spaces. This actually allows us to get 66 parking spaces. The additional space is more to do with the reconfiguration of some of the handicap in front of the existing building, but it allows us to get an adequate amount of parking that exceeds the regulations and should suffice the needs of the building. As we know, the hair salon that's in the existing building at 282 Brockett has a lot of operators and at times uses a lot of parking spaces. So we heard what the commission had to say. I think what we're proposing here should satisfy those concerns. As I said earlier in our presentation, we're taking two properties. 2391 Berlin Turnpike is a 16,700 or so square foot site. It in itself is in a non-conforming property. We're going to merge that with the larger parcel so that issue goes away. We are going to reduce the footprint, albeit small, but we are going to reduce the footprint of the existing building to take a little portion of it from the building lines outside the side yards. The second story space that is over the building line would be removed as well. So there's a lot of things that we're doing with this plan, along with the additional green space and taking the parking out of the front yard, that brings it further to conformance. It's not going to be completely in conformance, but it is what it is. It exists today, and we have a solution, I think, that satisfies both parties. This does require us to finalize the engineering. If the commission's so inclined to accept this proposal, we would go back to finish our engineering and present that to the town engineer prior to hopefully the next meeting.
Mr. Chairman. And you'd need relief of the LID with this plan, correct?
We will need some relief of the LID, understanding that this is the only gravel pit, so the water does go into the ground, so it naturally does function in the low-impact development design method, but we can't meet all of the requirements in order to make this happen.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other commissioner remarks? Anything for the applicant? I think you did a great job in accommodating the commission and giving us the green space in the front. As far as the LID, you've, in my estimation, you've met as best you can the requirements of that regulation because of the soils type that you have here. We'll take that into consideration. I hope that the town engineer will. And have you talked to him?
No, I'm saying we always do.
Okay.
Remember, the bottom line requirement is always to the maximum extent practicable. So we always work with the soil.
Okay.
But it's been something that's been a burden on a lot of businesses.
It's
I've heard.
required them to spend more time coming up with the design, but it's never been a problem for them to actually comply with because we never ask them for more than they can provide.
I don't know. I disagree with you. I think it's been a burden on businesses. It's been a financial burden on businesses and a hardship. And I think with the soils that we have, with most of the soils here in Newington being clay, that it's a ridiculous regulation to make the businesses comply with. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, Dom, Alan, you did a great job with accommodating the commission. We end up with getting almost 100% of the green space in the front of the building. You brought it well with major concessions as far as the nonconformity. You went as far as humanly possible to go. You, as far as the LID, I think you satisfied us as meeting what you could on that. It's a great plan.
Thank you.
So at this point, Mr. Planner, where do we go from here?
Well, I have the deadline to act on the site plan is November 17th, which is before your next meeting, but the applicant has given us permission for it to go beyond that to the 20th.
Okay, you're going to need time to work out the engineering, so
Yes.
that, okay. Okay. Looks good.
Thank you very much. We'll see you at the next meeting.
Yep, thank you.
The banner,
Okay, then the next item under old business that we added to this, to the agenda is the Stu Leonard, right?
Right.
Stu Leonard's.
Good evening. My name's Bob Herbst, Facility Manager at Stu Leonard's. I appreciate you guys taking me in tonight on such short notice. There's a banner that we put up for our Christmas tree shop that we've been putting up since we've actually opened. It's the same banner. Nothing's changed. Unfortunately, I didn't get the word early enough to put this in with your new regulations that it was going through the TPZ. The banner's up on the wall right there. It's 5 feet by 50 feet, 250 square foot. The only difference is that picture was taken so long ago. Now that Pet Value's in with their awning, we just have that banner. It'll be to the right on that wall, but it's the exact size, same banner, up for the compliance of, I believe it was 25 days. We get, it'd be November 14th to December 8th. And we're just requesting it to be able to go back up for this Christmas.
If you're asking for that amount of time, but
Correct.
under the regulation, you're allowed more, but the
Correct.
least amount is better for the commission.
Right.
Yeah, this suffices as far as the site plan, Norm.
it's up to you.
No, this would suffice because we're all aware of that that banner, and this picture gives us an understanding of where it is, so we don't need you to locate it on the site plan. So this will suffice as the site plan, because that's one of the requirements of a temporary sign regulation. I'll open it up to the commissioners. Any questions for the applicant? Okay, this is the first application that's coming under the temporary sign. This one's an easy one to get through because it's something that's come before, that's been up for a number of years. But it's good that they're coming, we're getting people to start understanding that they do have to come in to give us the opportunity to review what they're doing. Commissioner Payne.
I'd just like to thank Stu's for coming in and making this presentation to us, and I don't see any problem with this. I don't have any problems at all. You're using approximately half of the time that's allotted. I would assume that you're hopefully you're gonna come back and do another sign at another time.
Today I was talking with the president of the store, and when we were going over the regulations, he's like, "What?" Because in the past we've only done it this one time,
right?
And we use all the days up that was allotted for the year. So you'll probably see something like in May. I'm probably coming back.
Yeah,
now.
that's fine.
Not a problem.
But at least I know the steps and the procedures. I've been here since this store is opened, and I was just so used to going to the town hall and filling out the app. This was new, and I appreciate you taking me in on such short notice.
Not a problem.
I'll make sure I have enough time to the prior sign.
Bob, you all good with it?
Yeah, I'm good with it. As Commissioner Payne said, thank you for coming in. This is a great example set for future people coming in.
Yep.
And it looks good, and we're happy to oblige you.
I have one quick question.
Sure.
Just for my own, because I'll probably be looking to put this up next year.
Yeah.
Do I have to come to the public hearing again, or just submit that same, if nothing's changed?
Mr.
I don't
Planner.
mind.
Well,
I just want to know.
It sounds like it's not literally a renewal of this exact same sign, but it would be a different banner, right?
The only difference is we don't have price on there anymore. So the sign just says, fresh cut trees arriving daily. We've had the same sign for the last 6 years. We just didn't put it won't have pricing on it.
But not in May. You're not going to say fresh cut
No, the
trees.
May one, I
That's
don't know what he
that's I'm
wants to
saying.
do, but it'll have something to do with the Mother's Day garden shop. It might just say garden shop. That one,
In
I
May,
can-
he has to come in, but
Right.
what I think he's gathering at is next December, will he have to come in again for this
Why
one?
don't you,
And-
at next December, you touch base with the planner?
Well,
and then
actually,
the
it'll
planner
be
will.
September.
Okay, well, September. Touch base with the planner. Planner will advise the chairman. I'll talk to the members, and we
Okay.
probably won't have you come in.
I don't want to miss like I
Okay,
did this
so
year.
just make a note to touch base with the planner at that time, and he'll
Okay.
inform the commission. We probably don't want to see you again on the same
I
side.
don't mind. Some of this stuff was interesting tonight that you were going over.
Yeah.
Okay.
You live in town, want a seat?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have to move that for, or
Yeah,
how do-
that sounds like a good idea. Just move it to old business for action.
I'll
Or
move
wait,
the
we're already-
temporary
we're past
sign
old
for
business, aren't
Stu's.
we?
I'd like to make
Oh, we're on
a,
new business.
make a motion that we move the temporary sign for Stu's to old business.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll take it up and we'll act on it under a different section of the agenda.
Okay.
We're taking up right now. Next item is old business petition 3317, Dominic.
Petition 33-17, zone chain R12 to BBT at 2391 Berlin Turnpike. 2391 Berlin Turnpike LLC, owner applicant John Formato, 17 Farmington Avenue, Plainville, Connecticut. Contact.
Mr. Planner, do you?
Well, I see the applicant has left, so probably, although as I said last month, sorry. As I said last month, I don't see any reason not to act on the zone change, because I didn't think there was any problem with the zone change, but since the applicant is not here, and he probably left assuming that this would be tabled, I would say just table it again.
Okay, we got enough time.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
we'd like to clean up both of the site plan and the change of zone at the same meeting, just so that we make sure that we get everything in sync.
Right.
Okay, so move on to the next old business, which is B, which was the temporary structures opting out.
Make a motion.
I have a draft motion.
I'd like to make a, okay.
Take a motion. You've got a motion ready?
I make a motion that we approve the temporary sign for Stu Leonard's with no conditions.
No, we're not on that.
We're not on that?
We're on temporary structures, the opting out.
Oh, apologize.
Here's another one.
Thank you.
You want to get it, read us read the approval and then make the additional findings
Yes, I think
to
that-
add to the motion?
Right, that could be, well, I think Robert's rules prefers you have a motion on the floor and then discuss it. so-
Discuss it and then add,
Yes.
then do the ads. Okay, so
Yes.
would you put it on the floor?
Petition 35-17, opt out of the Public Act 155-17, temporary health care structures. I move to recommend for the following reasons that Newington exercise its option to opt out of the temporary health care structure process as provided for under Public Act 155-17, temporary health care structures, and to forward this recommendation to the Newington Town Council for final action. Reasons: one, the TPZ is willing to consider amending the accessory apartment zoning regulations to expedite the approval process for impaired persons. Two, the act does not adequately define impaired persons, permit, and other terms, and does not clearly state whether a public hearing is allowed. Three, the HIPAA laws may prevent the town from knowing if and when the impaired persons vacates a unit.
Well, some of the items that I heard Councilwoman Budrako mentioned that caught my ear was her point that the regulations or the rules are so badly defined that an RV on cinder blocks might qualify. So, all right, let's phrase that a little more elegantly. Reason number four, some inappropriate structure could be brought in, could be introduced.
So the regulations are not defined clearly.
Yes. Well, we already say that.
Yeah.
That's all your number two, but I think that was a particularly dramatic illustration of how poorly they were defined. So I thought that might be a good reason to put into the mix.
The enforcement of the regulations are going to be,
Well, the reason number two that I've proposed, the act does not adequately define impaired person, permit, and other terms, and does not clearly state whether a public hearing is required. Maybe in other terms, we can include the structure itself is not adequately defined.
Or we can make that we can make that number four, that the structure is not adequately defined.
Yes.
So just put it just like that.
Mm-hmm.
What else do I need?
And then another point that you made, which was that the impaired person could be a young person, and then the structure could be there for up to 30 years.
Yeah.
So there's no expiration date.
No time limit.
No time limit. A structure could
Time limit or
structure could be there
expiration
for decades.
okay, so 4 would be the structure is not adequately defined.
Mm-hmm.
And 5, there's no time limit.
And that a structure could be there for decades.
No time limit, no expiration date.
The structure could be there indefinitely.
Okay. Those were the points she raised that I thought were particularly noteworthy. She also mentioned that it could be abused. That although well-intentioned, the Public Act could be abused by individuals. So the potential for abuse. 6. Potential for abuse. That's what I have.
Okay, do you think that's enough?
Yeah. Second that.
Yeah, okay, so one,
You want me to read this one more time?
yeah, just read the reasons, and then we'll get.
the reasons,
Why
the
don't
T-
we get a do we need a second before we?
Yes, I made
Okay, so the
Second.
Okay, motion made and second, so go ahead and make the changes that we
The,
discussed.
I'm going to read from the top of the reasons. Reason one, the TPZ is willing to consider amending the accessory apartment zoning regulations to expedite the approval process for impaired persons. Two, the act does not adequately define impaired persons, permit, and other terms, and does not clearly state whether a public hearing is allowed. Three, the HIPAA laws may prevent town from knowing if and when the impaired persons vacate the unit. And four, the structure is not adequately defined. Five, no time limit, and structure could be there indefinitely. And six, potential for abuse.
Okay, the motion made and second, and any discussion, any questions on the motion? We're all in agreement? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so you will send this to the
council
for action, and the liaisons are here. You'll make sure that it gets presented to the council, and you'll be able to answer any of the questions they might have, because you've been involved with this process from as much as we have been. Okay, good.
Did you want to act on the?
Yeah, we're gonna act on the Stu Leonard sign.
I'll make a motion that the temporary sign for Stu Leonard's is approved with no conditions.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll go into petitions for scheduling.
Okay, we received two applications since the last meeting. The first one is for a laundry service at, need to make this bigger. Oops, not that way. Okay, a laundry service at 285 Main Street, unit number 8. What Mr. Pizzoferrato wants to do is operate a service where he does the laundry at this address, but he comes to your home, he comes to your place of work to pick up the dirty laundry, brings it here, he washes it, dries it, folds it, and then brings it back to you. But because the regulations define this as a special permit type of activity, it needs a public hearing. So I recommend we schedule the hearing for your next meeting on November 20th, Monday.
Yeah. This is not a private residence, this is a business address.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So
It's a
so you know.
multi-unit building.
It's where the Briarwood is.
Yeah, so you know it's not something they're trying to do as a home occupation. Go ahead.
Okay,
Put
and
that
then,
on.
yep, okay, and then the next item is a accessory apartment at the house at 181 Robbins Avenue, Norman Rainville applicant. He, actually, his plan, he's getting older, as we all are, and his plan is to live in the apartment and rent the house to somebody else, which is perfectly allowable under the regulations.
Okay.
And I did the math, it meets the requirements, so there's, I recommend that be scheduled also for your next meeting.
Okay. All right, town planners report.
All right, all right, my report, I just mentioned that I had no new information on the community sign issue, which EDC Commissioner Payne already reported on today. And then the other item was I just wanted to remind everybody that your next meeting is on Monday, the 20th, not Wednesday, the 23rd, because of Thanksgiving. And that's all I had.
Okay, any communication, any questions for the planner on his report? Any communications?
Not this month, I will next meeting.
Under public participation, I would ask that the two liaisons please come to the table so we could have a discussion on the item that the planner just talked about, the the sign regulations for nonprofits. And hopefully you could help us with some of the problems we're having with that. You were both here, you heard the report from the chairman of the Economic Development Commission. You're aware of what we're trying to accomplish. Do you think that we're going in the right direction with this, or do you have something you want to add? Or
I'm looking at the regulation that Commissioner Payne, or Chairman Payne, provided to us. And I do know they have a spreadsheet. So number one, who would be responsible for taking the phone calls for the reservations if you did this under the Economic Development Commission? That's my first concern. It's a bookkeeping thing. But I do think you're on the right track. I think it needs to go out because I'm looking at the reservations and it's, Parks and Rec season greeting, Parks and Rec season greeting, Parks and Rec season greeting. And that sign on the green is a two-sided sign.
Yeah.
And they always have the Parks and Rec sign. If you're heading south, it's always a Parks and Rec sign. There's no other sign. So they're getting continuous advertising. And the same one by CVS, the backside always has the Newington Parks and Rec. So as you're exiting CVS, you can see it. Because I know it is a nightmare trying to reserve it. And you always wonder, it's blank and there's no signs and people are complaining that they can't put one up. The one that was on Clem Lemaire was donated by the Junior Women's Club. When it was up there, because I remember it used to have a sign donated by Junior Women's Club.
It was here when I got here.
And this brings me back to when I was on this board, I had recommended that maybe we could reach out to the Kiwanis, the Rotary, or different civic organizations to see if they would like to sponsor a sign. And then they would have first dibs on their sign to advertise. So that might be a way to increase their use of having one. And maybe the high school would be willing, or, an Eagle Scout could do one as their project, and then the high school could use it for their advertising.
Gail, got some input? I know you do.
Yeah, I kind of have just a little bit of a different take. It's obvious Parks and Rec needs, they have so many activities and so many programs going on. I think they need their own dedicated sign. I don't know where it is or where, the location could be, but I do think that they've got to be kind of off separate. But seeing what happened with the businesses, from your own words, from the commission's own words, the temporary sign regulation for businesses was kicking around for quite some time because it was trying to be resolved within this committee, and then you invited them to come, I guess, and they didn't show up for some public hearings, whatever. But it took such a long time until finally you said, let's give it to the people who use it. Give it to them. Let's tell them what we're trying to accomplish, what we kind of want to see, but give it to the customers or the clients, whatever. Give it to them. Let them figure out how to do it within our confines and come back with it. And it got resolved. My feeling is that there's like two other groups. There's people who have things maybe once a year, like the Kellogg Eddy, Hearth Cooker thing or whatever, the Run for Dom, the Art League, whatever. But then you've got all these other groups, which I think are what you're trying to, resolve.
Well, a good example is if you've driven around town, just today, you've seen the George Washington Sleeps Here or something. They're on every street corner, not even on people's properties. They're in the right-of-way.
On town property.
Hopefully they'll come when the event's over and pick them up, which they never do, and they're all over the streets.
And you've got the blood. Then you've got the blood drives. Then you've got the Martin Kellogg, drama club. You've got all this. I think you're going to get pushback if you try from top down and say this is what you're going to do and this is where it's going to go with no input from them. You're still going to have, I guarantee, you're still going to have those signs showing up all over town. If there could be some kind of one small group, I'll lead it or whatever, but just have a working group of somebody from the Rotary, somebody from, just invite the people who you see not abusing, but who you feel you would want regulated by this. Get them together and say, this is what we're trying to get resolved. This is what we want to do. What do you need? What do you think I think you need their input. I just don't think it can be top down.
But,
Yeah, first of all, the signs from the high school and anything associated with the high school, they had told us that they would advertise that on their directory sign that's in front of their building. They have not done that, and that would solve a lot of the problems as far as events that are held at the school. Okay, that's one problem. Then you have the Kiwanis, Chamber, and those people, okay? And I'm sure that they wouldn't mind sponsoring one sign location here and there, where they would have a spot. You could divide the space maybe in two, where they could have a spot for their events, and then you could have a sign open for other people or that are having events. This isn't too difficult. They're supposed to be community signs. They put up a sign across from the bank, and it's just 2 poles. It looks terrible.
I'm not arguing with
Okay.
you. I'm saying let's get their input before we say this is what you have
Well,
to do.
the chairman of the economic tried to get the input of the of the chamber, and they said, "Oh, goody! Now we can have a sign on all 6 poles." So I don't know if you really want their input or not.
I think I don't think this goes to that magnitude that we need to get input from them. I think this could be decided amongst the TPZ, and if you want EDC to oversee it with EDC. I don't think it's that complicated. You just need to get organizations that are going to come forward who will be willing to donate these sign locations.
First thing we got to do is to determine where these locations are. If it's
Correct.
going to be
Well,
on
that's the other
public
thing.
land, if it's going to be on private land.
Right.
Then we got to determine where we're going to get the signs, we're going to need allocation of money from the council.
Well, I'm
If
saying
it's
if
going to
you
be
get-
something that we could get donated from the
Right,
seniors.
and they're not that expensive. I mean, I'd love to know how much Parks and Rec paid for that new sign that they put up on the town green, which I personally think should have been in a different location. It's not in a really good location. And as we're on that subject, they have their electrical boxes that are still sticking up, and I've seen people trip over them. So I would request if they could spray paint them yellow or something, or do something so, yeah. And I think it's because of the Christmas lights, but I'm ready for somebody to trip and sue the town because these boxes are sticking out of the ground and there's nothing identifying that they're there.
If we could identify the people that use these, would be using these signs, we could reach out to them. I think Gail has a point that it's better to get them involved at the beginning than once we do it and then they all complain and that is not what we want.
But at least give them the appearance of
Participation,
collaboration.
yeah.
And I will say, I think at the high school, if they're supposed to be using their digital sign, they have to let the booster clubs know, because it's the booster clubs that are purchasing all these yard signs and putting them out.
That's something that, that's why we need the council. The council got to say to the Board of Ed, you got to police your this item.
Maybe the council needs to take this over and come up with locations, since it's town-owned property. It could be private land, because we've been working on it for some time and we can't get anywhere with it.
Well, I think this kind of dropped by the wayside.
Yeah, but we're getting to we have the temporary sign ordinance and regulations in place. So now we got the business community to stop putting the signs up, but still we have these other entities still putting them up. So that makes us look like we're giving special treatment to nonprofits or special treatment to other people when the business community can't do it. We hold them to a standard and we don't hold anybody else to that same standard. And that's going to push them to the point where they start seeing those signs like the number that are out there at this time. They're going to say, hey, forget that, the A-frames. They're just going to start putting them up again, and we're going to have an enforcement problem. Then the whole thing falls apart. We can't let this perpetuate itself, or else we'll never get a handle on it. We gotta be able to say, here are the locations. We can't just say, well, you can't do nothing. If we give them the opportunity to have the locations, then when they put the signs out, we'll go take them down.
Right. Oh, no, I totally agree.
No,
Maybe you can reach out to Parks and Rec too, and to find out.
Yeah, it sounds like, I think Rose hit the nail on the head. They got their little fiefdom, and they only want to be able to use it. They come up with all kinds of excuses. We've had people tell me that they've approached them and asked them if they could use the sign, and they said, no, we're using it. And then the date that they had, they weren't using it at all.
Well, if you
They
look-
just don't want to be bothered.
If you look at this, a lot of the reservations are just generic season greeting signs, like at the holidays. If you look at this, they reserved it for the whole month of December, and it's just their season greeting.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what an organization, I mean, I could see them putting it up if nobody has that week.
And maybe we should try to separate this from the Park and Rec. That's the point that maybe.
It doesn't have to go to economic development, and it could stay with Park and Rec, but I think that they need a little oversight on what they're doing there, because they've taken this over on themselves, and they've said that we can't have any more signs because it costs us $1,000 a year to maintain these signs. I'm telling you that there's no way that
Yeah,
that
that's what they
costs
said.
$1,000 a year to maintain each sign. And Rose brings up an excellent point that we have an MOU of understanding for us what those signs are supposed to look like, and they're supposed to be colonial style signs that says community events. And it could say sponsored by Kiwanis. This one could be sponsored by Rotary. I mean, it's not too hard. We could also get the seniors involved and have them make them possibly the tops. And then the poles are usually plastic so that they don't have to be painted, and then it's just a cutting grass. And we need to solve this problem. I think you need at least a half a dozen or a few more. And they could be at fire department locations, because fire departments put signs out, and all they have is 2 single poles, and then when they take the sign down, the poles are sticking in the ground, and they look ugly.
No, absolutely. No, maybe each fire department would want to sponsor one too. And then they could use it, and off time they can have other or civic organizations put stuff in. But, I mean, there is a remedy. It's just, and who's going to just monitor
What do we
it?
do with the churches that do the tag sales and all these things that they put all these temporary signs on in front of their property?
Well, I know, so
Do
most
we
of the
have
Most of the churches use the community sign if they can get to it.
No, I see Holy Spirit every week has,
Oh.
you know, I'm not picking on the Catholic Church.
You drive by it, so you see it.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
The Congregational Church this
Yeah,
past
they
year
have-
had a
yeah, they have
concert
the-
at 4 o'clock in the
And
afternoon.
they had that big
A-frame.
banner.
No, they had an A-frame.
And they have a big banner they put up too.
They had 4 doors here at one time, too.
Still do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they still do.
I don't know, I'm looking for help. I want to move this, I don't want this to linger on like we let the other thing linger. We got to do some work, and we got to come to a conclusion, and we got to all be on the same page so that we could get it accomplished.
Well, once we know what the council is made up of,
Yeah.
and after Tuesday, we can bring this up at leadership and see how they want to hear, and then deal with it our last meeting in November, because we have
Okay.
no business on the 14th.
Gail has I've listened to what she said. I think that she's right. I think we got to get these people, we got to make a list of who the violators are and get them, at least let them know that we're going in this direction. So if they have any problems with it, they could let us know up front. But if they sign on to it, then they signed on, and then when they put the signs up, we say, hey, you signed on. This is what you agreed to. You wanted this too. But I think we need locations, we need probably our own location. I think we should be away from the Park and Rec, because I think they monopolize and over-control what they're doing. They have a couple of locations, they got 2 locations, fine, those are your locations. We'll find other ones for the community signs.
Yeah.
And have them done the right way too, so they look like something that we could be proud of, not two poles and a piece of plywood across the top of it. I mean, the one that we had in the center had all the scroll work on the top. What happened to that sign? I don't know.
There was nothing wrong with it.
They
I don't know
took it
why
down.
they took it down and destroyed it, if they did destroy it, or what they did with it. There was absolutely nothing wrong with it. Maybe it needed a fresh coat of paint, and that was it.
maybe we can find out why they took it down and moved it to the location. Maybe you can do a, ask.
Okay, so you will take this to the council and try to get something back to us. And Gail, you will try to help us put together a list of who we want to be in contact with if we go forward with this whole thing, the list of like the organizations and maybe the churches or whatever. I don't know. I just know that when I drive around, especially in the fall, it's a disaster. And they're not even it would be one thing if they were asking the citizens to put them on their lawns. They're just sticking them, they're just driving around and sticking them on every intersection. They've had them on my piece of property. I never gave them permission. They just stick it on my property.
There was a woman walking with like 6 of them, and as she was walking, she was putting them down.
Yeah, it's unsightly. And then the problem is they like putting them up, but they don't like taking them down.
Mm-hmm. And they see them everywhere, knowing full well that whoever was there before them didn't get permission, and therefore think that it's okay.
Yeah.
That it's okay to put them down without permission.
And I think that it's the council that has to do the communication with the school system. It's not the TPZ. I think it has to come from the council to try to correct that problem over there. There's a lot of things. Matter of fact, if the school was cooperative, they should even advertise community events on the directory sign, because it would be the right thing to do.
Yeah, they pressed to get that digital sign. I mean, they did it beyond what we wanted them to do. They did it under pretense that the town's is exempt. They forced it through, and now they don't even use it for what the intent was. I thought that they were going to. The only thing that I thought was going to be good out of it, that maybe they would use it as the bulletin board instead of putting all these signs, but that never happened. They don't use it as that. I mean, they've just got time and temperature basically on it.
Yeah, and this morning.
The waste.
Yeah. Okay, so just, you come here every meetings anyway, so we'll just stay on top of it, and when you get back to us, we'll move it. And then
Yeah, it won't be till our second meeting in November.
Yeah, that's whatever. And I hope you guys will be coming back. You both I'm assuming that both your positions, I know both your positions are not under contention as far as a recount or anything. So hopefully you'll stay on as liaisons to the zoning board.
Gotcha.
Okay, Michael?
Tilcon is open for asphalt till the middle of December.
Right.
They didn't shut it down, so maybe that could be expedited for that other problem.
Why don't we,
That could help them with their,
yeah.
Yeah, but you gotta put a binder in, it's gonna take you time.
I called text the contractor during all that.
It could
and
help
just
for
got
the
back to me.
temporary repairs, but
Yeah.
you can't open up the road now. It's too cold and too big of a project to start now.
Right.
What I'd like to see is, I'd like to see the progression of how this got to where it is. I mean, somebody in this town must have been made aware of it long before this.
Well, the thing is, as we were saying before, we've been in communication with the developer all along, and then the communication started getting fewer and fewer, and then it's been now like 2 or 3 months, and nobody's heard anything from them. So it was a gradual process. It wasn't like all of a sudden they were gone, and at which point I would have come to you and said, they're gone. We need to use their money.
What I'm concerned with here is with the binder breaking up the way it is, the way that lady described. If it's that bad, the town should have, I would think, had brought this up to us earlier. Even though if you were in communication with the contractor, that binder is what people are driving on. You've got raised structures up there, such as manhole covers, storm drains and whatnot, that somebody hits it, could do some serious damage to the vehicle. And that's my concern, plus somebody falling over it. And if they have ponding issues, is it going to freeze? You know, you got to put something out there. I think if Mike is correct, the Tilcon's still open in the middle of December, you might be able to get some hot mix in there and just temporarily fix it.
Right.
But as was pointed out, when the first plow comes through, you're going to start ripping that stuff up.
Yeah, we got to get on top of the town attorney. I'll talk to you tomorrow about it. We got to get to Benny and find out what we could legally do.
Right.
what do you think as far as giving them the money, if that's, if it's legal to do? Dominic, do you think?
Yeah, I think that's, if it's legal, it comes back, the town attorney says it's legal, then I would still,
Then they
I
would be,
want
the onus
oversight
would
on
be
that.
upon them
Yeah.
to do the
Want oversight on
temporary,
that.
to do, and the town could, I don't really want the town to get into the position of becoming the general contractor.
the only way it would be beneficial is if there was a tremendous amount of work that they couldn't accomplish privately, then the town could do it at a less cost. But it's hard to say until you get out there and inspect everything and see how bad it is and get down into the catch basin and see what's causing the problems over there. And but I do agree with you that it would be a lot easier if it's legal and that solves their problem, is just to turn the whole bond over to them. Let them repave the whole road, and if there's extra money, they could keep it in reserve in case there's other problems that arise down the road from this development.
Sounds like to me that they're not gonna have enough money. Bobby, what do you think?
I'm good.
You okay with?
Yeah, no, I agree. If it's legal and we can turn it over to them, let's keep the town out of it. Let them handle it, let them do it. This way the town will, and I know it would be limited, but get the responsibility off the town. The town's got enough to deal with. They're more than willing to take it over. That's what they were here for. They wanted the money so they could fix the problem.
Yeah, you gotta remember, this is a private road too,
No,
so.
exactly. And I don't want to
I
end
don't
up,
want this to turn into a public road because the town went in and did the work.
right, and that's where I'm going with this.
Right.
They came in originally looking for the money so they can get the problem fixed.
Okay, we just gotta make sure that it's something that we could do legally
Right.
with, and that's why we'll have to talk to the town attorney and get a written opinion from him as to what we can do and can't do. Stanley and then Michael.
My only concern here is I'd like to have the town just have the oversight, not do the work, but have the oversight. So this way here, it's done properly to town specs. Obviously, it wasn't the binder course, so it wasn't done to specs. And then from there, it's theirs, okay? Because I don't want to see this come up in 4 or 5 years, come back and say, it's falling apart, you should have had more input into it. That's all I'm concerned with. I don't want to see the town do it because then you become legally liable for this thing.
Michael?
The residents there, they're not a general contractor, so they may not have that expertise.
But they've been talking to the
but if
right
they- if
people.
they
They've been
have the
talking to
right-
General Paving.
Correct.
They
You
got
can
pricing.
disperse the money to the contractor that's doing the job and look over the whole job. And, hey, you're gonna run out of money. Maybe we can help you.
I don't know,
Look over the
we
whole job
can't-
first, and when we go out and look at it. But
Yeah, we can't start, we're not in a position to start making judgments as to, we're giving them any money because we only got what the bond is.
Right, but I'm just saying the
The town isn't in
bond
a
is- but-
position to give.
And you said it was 160,000?
In the ballpark, right.
We'll see.
They got
we'll
an
see.
estimate to do the road over with the binder course for about 76,000. So there could be some other problems, some new structures and a few other things. So, it's possible that that whole bond might be able to take care of the whole thing.
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know what they put in for drainage either. We don't know if it's we don't know anything because it don't sound good to me when the catch basins are filling up with silt all the way up to the top.
They're not filling all the way up to the top, I don't
Well,
think.
then we gotta go out there and take a look, Dominic.
All right, I'm done.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else to bring before the commission? Okay, motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Okay, Bobby, you can go home now.